Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. It's me, Chris and Pat, back in the pub to answer your burning questions. The headline this week was sent in by Silver Lining, who I presume is a Manchester City fan. They say, should Liverpool be considered Premier League favourites due to Manchester City's ongoing injury crisis? An injury crisis in sort of like quotation marks is Laporte, really, isn't it? I know that Leroy Sané's got a bad injury, but at least they've got cover there. Centre back is a problem.
Well, the crisis is having Otamendi as the only fit, recognised centre half at the moment, isn't it? Because John Stones is also out.
He's injured,
albeit with a slightly more minor injury. I think he's out for 4 or 5 weeks.
Oh no!
So the
now it
failure
is a crisis
to replace Company is coming back to haunt them at the moment. If Company continues as he is at Anderlecht, he may well be back at Manchester City in 6 months' time.
Yes.
So, go on, you lead the charge, Pat, because I really haven't considered this. Didn't look in crisis yesterday as they comfortably dispatched of Shakhtar, did they, in the Champions League?
It's Shakhtar, isn't it?
I don't actually think it's an injury situation that maybe moves the needle here so much as how bad they've been defensively so far. And I think that's largely because they're adjusting to a midfield that revolves around Rodri instead of Fernandinho. Rodri, don't get me wrong, Rodri's been pretty decent so far, but he has not been Fernandinho. Fernandinho pretty much mopped up everything in that midfield and kept City's defence the best in the league over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And that hadn't been the case so far this season, even when Laporte was still there. You know, in the Bournemouth game, they gave up big chances relentlessly on the counter. They've done this all season so far, have given up big chances in almost every game you've seen them play.
Yeah.
Ironically, except probably against Spurs, where they didn't come away with the result. Teams have been able to get through them and create high-value opportunities. And that's only going to get worse, you imagine, with Laporte out, except for the fact that Pep Guardiola, generally speaking, is pretty good at resolving these things. And Fernandinho, obviously, he's been saying for years he's going to play centre-back as time goes on, and it feels like that's going to be his kind of default position now. So I do think Pep's going to resolve it. But the question is, given how good Liverpool were last season, how long can Man City afford to drop points for before it's too big a gap to make up? Because it's one of those things, you know, like Palace, I think, have been the worst team in the league so far this season, but Palace have taken enough kind of lucky points from the first few games that you think that might make the difference between going down and staying up. Similarly, when you're talking about teams that are going to take over 90 points in the league, you don't actually need to fall that far behind before you cannot possibly make that ground up.
Yeah.
So I think at the moment, Liverpool look the better side overall. But I still think that Liverpool are likely to finish in the low 90s points-wise. And I still think that City are perfectly capable of roaring back and ending up in the top 90s, given that last season they lost more games than Liverpool and still ended up winning the league.
Yeah, and I think if you look back at some of City's results last season, like I remember them losing at home to Palace and people having similar sort of conversations then. And I think you can afford to drop 20 points and win the league this season. That's the sort of ballpark I think you can drop. I think if you're looking around the 94-point mark, I think that's probably going to win you the league this season. Anywhere sort of 94 to 96, and that's dropping 18 to 20 points in the season. And I think Manchester City can drop that and still feel comfortable about winning it. And it is an injury crisis, but let's not pretend that Liverpool have also looked rock solid at the back.
Okay.
Liverpool have also looked shaky. We saw them look shaky again against Napoli midweek, conceding a lot of sloppy goals, and thankfully their attack is that good that it is kind of bailing them out. Lots of 3-1s, 2-1s at the moment, but I'm sure they're going to drop points at some stage in the season. At one stage, I think they had the option of going 10 points clear, let's not forget, last year around Christmas time, and
that's true.
It was still reined in. We're 5 games into the season, no need for City to panic, but Otamendi is not good enough to play for just this Manchester City side, this Pep Guardiola side.
I say that, but they got 100 points with Otamendi in the back line, and yes, he's older, and yes, I completely agree he shouldn't be a starting centre back for them. But like you said, Liverpool have had some warning signs that were kind of sorted out a little bit. I think let's not read too much into the Champions League because it was the same last season and they went on to win it. But you know, the first couple of games of the season, like particularly against Norwich, like they actually really struggled to shut down Norwich's combination play. And I'd say it was really the Arsenal game where suddenly Arsenal kind of looked a bit scared of getting thumped and played quite conservatively. And as a result, Liverpool looked much more like the Liverpool of last year. Before that, I thought that Liverpool looked a little bit
Norwich are the common denominator here, exposing the weaknesses of both sides. Of course, the whole Manchester City question has been exacerbated by that result at Norwich. Liverpool's attack and City's attack is still top 2 in the Premier League this campaign. I think the only team out shooting Liverpool in the Premier League is in fact Manchester City. However, Liverpool's defence is kind of floating around the 4th, 5th mark, isn't it? Kind of Champions League, Europa League sort of standard at the moment when you consider the underlying numbers. I think they're conceding 10 shots per game in the Premier League. And if you keep doing that across the course of the season, like you said, that will catch up with you eventually. And Manchester City, I mean, they've not got the rub of the green in certain fixtures, particularly against Tottenham, when I think XG had it down as like 3.6 to 0.02. But I suppose they'll take quite a lot of confidence from the fact that if Liverpool have similar injuries in their back line, that they will probably deal with it better than Liverpool.
Yeah.
I mean, James Milner can slot in, Fabinho can go right back, although that would be to a massive detriment to Liverpool, wouldn't it? Because he's been absolutely superb at the start of the season in the centre of midfield. I think one of the few players that came out of that Napoli game with any sort of like positive performance. So if he went right back, if James Milner's filling in at left back, say if the full-backs got injured, we want kind of Joe Gomez to play centre back, he could fill in for Matip. Matip's been a lot better than people kind of anticipated. He's grown in confidence over the last year, hasn't he? But they're kind of treading a very thin line in terms of how they deal with any injuries at the back. But that forward line has just been mesmeric, haven't they, at the start of the season? Firmino, who had a bit of a down year last year, already taking over 4 shots per game, which is up on last season, kind of completing a couple of dribbles as well, creating a couple of chances. Sadio Mane and Salah having 6 shots between them. It's just, they're relentless, aren't they? They haven't let up.
Yeah. I think as well, like an area of concern for me at Manchester City is that right back slot. Like Kyle Walker has continued a downward trend. I think he's on the slide, and I don't get why João Cancelo can't get a game. Maybe he's not bedded in, maybe he's not fit, maybe there's injury issues we don't know about, but he's consistently on the bench, and for me is a big upgrade on Kyle Walker. And Kyle Walker has looked shaky. I thought he was terrible against Norwich, giving the ball away in some ridiculous situations, particularly towards the end of the game. And I don't
That's always an option, isn't it? Kyle Walker could become a centre-back if they went to a back 3. They can play Cancelo on the right-hand side.
Well, why aren't they doing something like that? Why aren't they mixing it up and putting Cancelo into right back? Do you think it's just because they're so worried about the state of the defence anyway? Any more changes might make it even worse?
Yeah, I think that we'll probably see some experimentation over the next few weeks because they've been forced into it. But yeah, I mean, given that the team is clearly adjusting to Rodri and now Laporte's out and now Stones is out, there is the part of me that would be like, God, we can't have too many unknowns going on at any given time. But I also feel a little bit sorry for Kyle Walker in some regards. Like I think, for instance, you look at a goal like, say, Cantwell's goal against them, and you think that's just Kyle Walker being left on an island and doing the best he can. Like he's got a 2-on-1. Yeah. And this is what I mean by like the midfield just not being quite where it was last season. Yeah. But
I didn't think Gundogan was great in that game.
No, and if they can stay, and even still they came out slightly ahead on expected goals. Like I'm not saying, they came out ahead by a very small margin. So overall, if you were predicting that game, you'd have put it at 2-2, which is still not a good result for them. And this was definitely coming, like we've said. But I don't know, like it just feels a little bit like this is what happens when you move on from a truly great player, which is what's happened in Fernandinho. And the question is, can they stay in touching distance long enough for them to work it out?
Yeah, and of course, losing Laporte and losing John Stones really cuts off their building it from the goalkeeper, doesn't it? Yes. That is, it's a fundamental issue to the side. So they do need someone like Fernandinho who has that skill set, has that really good distribution to kind of step up right away, which is another tall order. Like he's got to adjust to playing centre back. As much as he thinks he can play centre back, and he probably will, there's going to be a bedding in period there where teams might see that as a little chink in their armour. So although Guardiola, like at Bayern, when he put Philipp Lahm in central midfield, when he was playing Højbjerg at right back, we know he's great at solving these sort of situations. When he played Frank Ribery as a false number 9, there's still going to be a 2 or 3 game period where they might drop points, which again might cost them in the long run. Yeah. So if Liverpool can just build up this consistency and stay injury free over the first half of the season, then the pressure is going to be on City massively, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we might see them shop around in January for a centre half if things kind of stay the same, because Laporte's only just returning in January. He's got to get fit and kind of so on and so forth.
Well, very strong links with Milan Skriniar. I'm not sure that Inter will let him go, especially if they're in the running for a title, which I think they probably will be at that stage. But apparently they made inquiries for him in the summer, and they might go back for him in January.
There's some parallels with Inter's start and Juventus' start and Liverpool's and Manchester City's as well, isn't there? Juventus not looking the most convincing. I mean, not conceding an awful lot of shots in the same way as Manchester City, but their attack isn't quite firing, unlike City's, I suppose, which might guide them through this, because Aguero and Sterling have been scintillating, right?
Yeah, I mean, Raheem Sterling in particular, has he got 5 goals already this season?
Aguero's got 7, right?
Yeah, so those two have started the season on fire, but then you look at that, like for me, I think Norwich would have been really, really exposed or like struggled against Leroy Sané. I think Leroy Sané would have been perfect in that Norwich game where they didn't want to funnel City wide, and Leroy Sané would have been able to get at them from a wide position, which I think is potentially what they missed. I don't think Riyad Mahrez started that game, did he? Riyad Mahrez came on, and
so he's been good at the start of the season, a couple of assists.
Has been good, but it's a significant downgrade, isn't it, on Leroy Sané?
But this is why you're right, though, that Cancelo would have been the guy to bring in that sort of game, because if you know that you're a little bit defensively suspect at the moment, but you know you've got an incredible attack, I don't know why you wouldn't go out there and say, okay, like maybe we are going to concede 2 or 3 today, but we can just punch them out. Like we're gonna sort of Mike Tyson this, and it'll be a slugfest. Like I think that's perfectly fine. And sometimes you just need to run out the team that does that. And in that case, the guy to bring on would have been Cancelo, who is that wide guy.
And he was playing effectively right wing at various points, wasn't he? I think at Juventus last season there was only 2 players that progressed the ball more in that side. I think it was Cuadrado and maybe Pjanic, or maybe Cancelo was actually second, in fact. So he very adept at getting the ball up the wing, which
and led the team in dribbles.
Which Kyle Walker has lost a bit, hasn't he? Like he's not that. He's still got a lot of pace, don't get me wrong, but I think his crosses and his key passes absolutely bottomed out last season, but his defensive numbers and his general passes went way up. So he's gone through a little evolution, and maybe to expect him to be that high chance creating kind of bombing on fullback is way out of kilter at the moment.
Do you think like Pep will be looking back at the summer now and thinking, why did I not centre back? Like going into the season with 3 recognised centre halves is a big risk, isn't it? And clearly Garcia has been hyped for ages, and he's
Alex Garcia.
Is it Eric, isn't it? It's
Eric
Garcia, yeah.
Alex Garcia's a midfield.
I've never heard of Eric Garcia.
Eric
That's
Garcia
because
is like,
he's obviously never going to play.
but he's meant to be like the Manchester City centre-back prospect for the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Mate, educate me.
much talked about by Manchester City fans. And I think if you were Eric Garcia and you're looking at this situation now, and you're thinking, right, Stones is out, Laporte's out, Otamendi.
I want to play for Solskjaer. That's what he's thinking.
I'm thinking if I'm Eric Garcia, maybe if I'm Phil Foden as well, if like Eric Garcia can't get a minute in this back line and he's going to play Fernandinho and Otamendi at centre-half over me.
But do you think as youngsters they would understand that it's the opening exchanges of the season, and now is not the time to experiment? Like, what manager in world football kind of trusts his youth in the opening 5-6 games? Like Guardiola's always insistent on, games are won in the first 8 games and last 8 games of the season. But I think Foden's probably going to get more minutes around that middle period.
Yeah.
And he'll get some Champions League minutes.
Yeah, Foden maybe differently, but I think Eric Garcia, like...
But you're right in that if
when's
he's that
he ever
highly
gonna play?
touted...
When's he ever going to play? If now is not the time with a massive centre-back injury.
But there's a difference between somebody being rated by the fans and kind of rated by people who watch the club, and necessarily being rated by the manager. You know, like, you always hear talk about X player coming through the academy, but you have no idea whether the manager's saying that. And he talks up Foden, certainly, but he also talks up everybody. That's kind of Pep's thing. Like, I mean... I think that if you'd asked Pep that question over the summer, you know, like, what about the centre-back situation? He'd have said, well, we have 3 recognised centre-backs, and then we have Walker and Fernandinho who can also play there, and then we have Garcia. And I think he probably would have thought, okay, that actually is enough. I'm sure he would have...
went in for Maguire,
I'm sure he would have considered it. He didn't go in very hard.
Well, he said that they went in for him, but they couldn't afford it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think maybe financial fair play did play a part, because
I think the Athletic said they had a £75 million bid rejected, and then that was it for them.
And Manchester United's bid for Maguire stretches
Was 85,
to 90 with add-ons, right? So maybe 15 mil is not enough for them to kind of be thinking of financial fair play. So yeah, I suppose it's odd. but we might kind of be in our words when Fernandinho perfectly slots in at centre half. When is he back from injury? I'm not quite sure. When is he?
I think he played last night, didn't he? At centre-back.
Not too sure.
I was watching the Real Madrid versus.
He played the Champions
PSG
League
game.
at centre back.
Oh, did he? Okay.
And to be fair, for
Clean
years we actually said, but before Pep came, like for years we kind of said Fernandinho could probably play any position on the pitch, and then Pep arrived and said exactly the same thing. So it's going to be a test of this now. And to be honest, like I see absolutely no reason Fernandinho can't do it. Like he's pretty unbelievable at everything.
But given that, Liverpool earned a record £111 million from the Champions League. They didn't spend any of that money, but Klopp can't have his cake and eat it because they spent loads of money the year before. We've spoke about Keita and Oxlade-Chamberlain returning before. Are they any better equipped, this season, I suppose, start aside, to take down Guardiola over the course of a season? Have we seen any changes in their style of play? They let up a little bit last season, didn't they, on the pressing front, to try and last a little bit longer. But have you guys seen any nuances which suggest
the defence is definitely playing a high line? Is definitely playing a high line.
And doing a worse job doing it.
And I don't know why they've started that way, but they're definitely 10 yards higher at the pitch because teams are getting in behind them with more ease, but they're probably more controlling of the ball. So I think that's like an obvious thing that Klopp's changed. He knows he can just go out and beat teams with that front line.
And the recovery pace is such in that back line that he
Van Dijk,
obviously is
which
just
is
like whatever. But the only problem
incredible.
is, at some point, if you do play a high line, you rely on recovery pace. One of those defenders is going to get a red card because that's just the way it works when you do that.
And I am really looking forward to. We're shooting this on a Thursday, so today's game against
I don't want to hear
Chelsea,
anyone moan about that either.
Where is it?
It's at Stamford Bridge, so
Yeah,
I'm
'cause
really
Chelsea-
looking forward to today's game.
Yeah, because Chelsea are pretty difficult to play against right now. Like, I mean, they've got Rudiger coming back, obviously, and Chelsea are doing some interesting combination play. Like, I mean, Tammy Abraham also as a matchup against Van Dijk. We will see what Tammy Abraham's kind of made of.
I really wanted Chelsea. Like every week, I want them to fit my pre-season hypothesis of they're a 5th, 6th place club. And their numbers are just really competent in terms of how many shots they're conceding, how many chances they're generating, even the quality of chance, because they started off the season taking quite a lot of shots outside the box. Like Mason Mount was having 5 shots a game, but 3 of them were outside the box. And you say, okay, that's a big problem for Chelsea that they can't progress the ball into the 18-yard box. And now they are starting to do that as well. And it's just like, holy, they might finish 4th or 5th just by virtue of being more competent than Arsenal. They don't have a better squad than Arsenal, and their attack is not going to be as good over the course of a season. But in all 3 areas, midfield, attack, defence, they've looked solid. And solid might be enough to get you Champions League football this season.
I don't think they have looked that solid in defence. I think that
in the back 3, better.
I think that they're out shooting opponents, but quite often the shots they give up are very good ones. And
Although slightly better since they've gone to the 3.
Yeah, and I do think it will help as well, with Rudiger back, and it will help with Kante back. Those things will definitely improve them.
But to be that competent whilst trying to kind of bring Tomori into the side, whilst flirting with the idea of having Reece James at right back, whilst Azpilicueta falls off a cliff, whilst losing David Luiz, I've just been really impressed with how Lampard's dealt with that, and I'm just like, looks like I'm wrong.
I don't know how much I'd credit Lampard. I want to see a little bit more from them. And also, to a certain extent, it's easy to look at them pumping Wolves away and you think, wow, that's a big result. And then you think, well, actually, Wolves have been quite bad so far this season. So we might need to upgrade. Often it's one of those things, isn't it, where it's really hard to gauge how good a performance is in the early exchanges because we don't know how good the teams are that you're facing off against.
4-0. If United beating 4-0.
Exactly. So, but I completely agree that Chelsea look totally competent and are definitely not going to embarrass themselves this season. That's how it feels right now.
I didn't see how bad Mount's, how long he's out for, but that was a horrific tackle.
From Coquelin.
But he walked off, didn't he?
I think he actually played on.
Okay.
And then he went down and then got taken off. So I'm imagining it's only a minor injury.
Because they will need him against Liverpool.
They will need him against Liverpool. That's exactly what I was about to say.
And also Michy Batshuayi came off the bench, I think, the other day.
He lives.
And alive.
And had an
Frankenstein's monster.
He took an absolutely ridiculous touch and created a chance as well. And I know he actually created the Mount goal, didn't he? Like the final goal of the game, I think.
The Mount comes inside.
Yeah, so the good thing about Lampard, regardless of what we think about his tactics and regardless of whether he can match up tactically against a top guy like Klopp, is that he seems to say, okay, we have a ton of players in the squad and let's give them all the opportunity to play. And I don't know, that club does kind of need a bit of harmony after a long period of time where they had managers who were like, if you're not on my side, you're out.
How do you line up against Liverpool if you're Lampard?
Yeah.
How do you line up?
I mean,
He's going to line up the same way he's lined up so far, right?
With Mount injured, is he going to play Willian as that second striker again?
I think he's going to have to play 3 at the back, isn't he, against someone like Liverpool? Like,
You're hoping Rudiger's fit for it, so Tomori,
I think Rudiger will be
Christensen, Marcos Alonso, Azpilicueta. You're hoping Kante's back to play alongside Jorginho in the midfield.
And actually, Marcos Alonso in that back 5 has provided them with some kind of much-needed progression down that left-hand side, because it was pretty much left to Mason Mount to be like, oh, an 8, a floating 8, a 10, out wide on the left. So he might play a role in this little decent run they seem to be generating. Who do you go for in midfield?
Well, I think Jorginho and Kante are going to play it if they're available, but I think maybe I would think about trying to find a way to get Kovacic in as well.
Start the season well as well.
And also he just gives you a bit more muscularity in midfield. I think if you are saying, okay, we're playing a back 3 and that means that our fullbacks can contribute to getting the ball forward, then you can say, all right, well, we're going to play somebody in midfield who can obviously do ball progression, but is maybe a little less creative than we like.
And he's useful to kind of match up against like a very workman-like midfield, isn't he? Like Kovacic will track his man, will do the yards. Like Fabinho, if it's going to be Fabinho, Henderson, Wijnaldum, or a combination as such, Milner might be in there as well. And you do need a bit more metal, a bit more battle in that midfield. But Jorginho would get absolutely thrown out by Fabinho.
Where does Pulisic fit into that? Like, where does Pulisic fit into that forward line as well when they played the 2 up top? Because like Williams obviously played up front there with Tammy. And it's kind of
I think Pulisic can do that.
Do you think he plays over Willian?
I would definitely play him over Willian. He's got more pace, he defends well, he presses well, he can work off the ball, he can create, he's a better dribbler. And also he's played in the front 2 for the US national team where he's been very good. Like, he's pretty much played every forward role at this point. And more importantly with Pulisic, I see a guy who can get you out of a sticky situation on his own. And you need that against Liverpool. And right now their fullbacks do not look... They've obviously been good. They've obviously been very good, but they do not look perfect. Then again, they didn't look perfect last season either. But I feel like Pulisic is the guy best placed to take advantage of problems with them. You're not really going to get that from Willian or Pedro.
How do we see the game going?
I would include Pedro.
Yeah,
I think because
of his work
disagree
rate.
there. Just because of how kind of press resistant he is as well. And you often see when Chelsea is struggling, he's got good game management. He takes the initiative, he drops back 20, 30 yards, and he just helps his midfield kind of get the ball out, progress the ball.
But then where's your pace? Because then the only fast player on the pitch is Tammy, because if you've got Alonso and Azpilicueta as wing backs, they're both slow. Your midfield is pretty slow. And your attack, Tammy's the only one with real pace. And that would concern me a bit, because I think, how are we getting in behind?
I'd be hoping to substitute some of that pace with just like Mason Mount being like very good on the ball, finding Tammy, them two having a good relationship and just being in,
and your worry
in good positions.
Is that Tammy gets stuck with Van Dijk and it's just like a mismatch all day.
But that's the bigger tactical. Well, I don't know. Physically, like Tammy has the raw materials to match up to somebody like Van Dijk. But I think if you were Lampard, you'd probably find a way to maybe sit Tammy between the centre back and the full back rather than directly lining up against Van Dijk.
How do we see the game going? I think Liverpool will still win, but I think Chelsea will score goals. So maybe like a 3-2, something like that. I think it'll be a good game.
I could see a draw, to be honest.
And of course, we will be covering it on the Football Social. So come over and join us around kickoff, 50 minutes beforehand, in fact. Adam Smith is back. A score prediction. I can't. I think Liverpool are likely to concede, but I think it might be bare similarities to the Arsenal game. I think we probably might see a 3-1.
Okay.
Interesting.
That's it.
Maybe a 2-2.
2-2. So there we have it. What do you guys make of Liverpool and Manchester City's start to the season, and how do you think the injury crisis is going to affect the title race? Let us know in the comments below, and tune into Football Social today, this afternoon, because this is shot on a Thursday but goes out on a Sunday.
Get over it.
Time now for our Kings of the Month, brought to you by Budweiser, the official partner of the Premier League and the King of Beers. There's of course a brand new show on Sky Sports as well, King of the Premier League. They'll be using the Sky Sports Power Rankings and Kings of the Match stats from the Premier League app to debate who's in and who's out of form. Tammy Abraham is currently topping the Power Rankings.
Good.
Is he your king of the month? Who's our kings of the month so far? We're going to be doing this on a monthly basis, just to clue you in there.
I hope Tomori's climbed the ranks.
He has climbed the ranks.
That steered finish was fit for a king, wasn't it, against Wolves?
Yeah.
I think it should have been saved.
What?
So harsh.
No, I think
it's turning away from the
it's
keeper.
It's not that. It's not in the corner. Like, it's actually fairly close to the middle.
But it's curling away from the keeper, and the keeper just doesn't expect it.
Sure, that's the problem.
Yeah.
And I agree, he doesn't expect it, but also that's sort of his job to expect it.
Okay.
It's a great goal, but I also think it's quite a savable, preventable goal.
Okay.
Whereas Tammy was just unbelievable. Tammy showed exactly what you'd expect him to show, and against a defence which, whilst it's been pretty bad so far this season, was one of the best in the division last year, and especially the last goal that he just makes out of nothing by himself. It was just great, like seeing some pace, some dribbling, like some anticipation, and then just a really nice, competent finish.
I love that Tammy is starting to get a little bit of recognition. He's starting to look like an extremely useful, well-rounded forward, like Pat said. But Sergio Aguero, if we're talking of kings, 7 goals, is it 1 or 2 assists? I think it equates to a goal contribution every 80 or so minutes, which at this point of the season is ridiculous. It goes without saying that it's leading. I do think the little man is had a season, a month fit for a king, hasn't he? He probably gets my vote.
And a guy his size should not score as many headers as he does. It's a testament to his movement that he does.
Yeah.
And he can't be, he's like a wrecking ball when he's in the air. He's just so chody, he's just knocking people out of the way.
I think Timu Pukki. I've got to eat my words, obviously. I've eaten them about 100
Is this ever going to
times
go
by
away?
now. But yeah, Timu Pukki's got to be in with a shout of King of the Month.
Yeah, for
obviously, just can't stop scoring goals, can he? I am going to be a little bit biased, and I think Aaron Wan-Bissaka has to be involved in the conversation. He started the season
1,000 tackles,
probably
and
too
interceptions.
well at this stage, worryingly well for Manchester United's backline, because at some stage, surely he has to stop making 15 tackles again.
But your back line's been great. Like, those numbers aren't, he's not having to put them up because your back line's not been good, right? It's just because he's a freak.
And it's because our midfield is non-existent. So
I'd say he
does
is the reason your back line's good.
He does the defensive midfielders' jobs as well.
Maguire
and Lindelof
and Lindelof.
have been good.
Yeah, Maguire and Lindelof have also been good, but like you say, your defensive midfield is absolutely horrific.
Yeah, it's all over the place. So Wan-Bissaka does a lot of help in there.
He has been sensational.
Yeah.
Like, he's been exactly what you hoped you were getting, right?
Yeah, I think James Maddison started the season really well, but little way off the levels of Sergio Aguero. I think Sergio Aguero.
And you've also got to look at somebody like Cantwell, who looks like he's he's coming for that role. You know, like Todd Cantwell so far has been absolutely fantastic in combination play. He's been good against the big sides. Obviously, got a great goal against City. He just looks like the real deal. He's already exceeded his goal and assist output in the Championship last season, this year in the Premier League, despite having played the 2 best sides in the division early doors, and Chelsea.
Yeah, I think only around 20 starts right in the Championship, so by no means was he a first teamer. Other players who qualify, Wilfred Ndidi started the season well. Trying to think like of around the teams that sort of challenge in the top 4. Who's been particularly stand out for Everton?
Richarlison.
Richarlison has
been really good. Obviously, he took a massive leap forward at the Copa America as well, and has carried that sort of form into the season start. So I'm excited to see how many Richarlison finishes on. If he can get up towards that 20 goal a season mark, then he's going to be a
Raul Jimenez pretty much dragging Wolves through this tough patch at the moment.
Struggling, aren't they? Sebastian Haller has hit the ground running.
You know what?
Unsurprisingly,
watching Aston Villa versus West Ham, I just thought Chelsea could really use someone like Seb Allen. That's not to discredit Tammy Abraham, who's clearly our king of the month at the moment. But his link-up play is so good. And if you've got really talented wide men, which Chelsea do, then he's just an immense focal point. I just think he could play at a high level.
Yeah, so I think Tammy's up there, Sergio, Firmino as well. Any of that Liverpool front line really, but there's plenty of names.
Not mentioned Salah.
We've already talked about it on today's show, haven't we? But there's plenty of names in the mix. If you want to find out more about the power rankings, click the link in the description. And of course, do not forget to tune into Kings of the Premier League live on Sky Sports, brought to you by Budweiser. Right, quick fire questions time now then. He-Man United says, which English team will go furthest in the UCL?
Christ, only City won in match week 1,
Yeah,
didn't they?
terrible start for the English
Not
side.
a good start, particularly Spurs.
Same
getting
last season though, right?
pegged back by Olympiacos.
Yeah.
Like Spurs lost to Inter last season. Liverpool lost to Red Star and Napoli. Like I don't really see a problem here, and I still think it'll be Liverpool.
Yeah. People do forget that Liverpool finished on 9 points, like, which
Straight
was
through
exactly
the group.
the same as Napoli. They went for it head-to-head. I think they both had a +2 goal difference as well. Yeah, Liverpool. What did you say? Liverpool. Yeah.
I'll just be different Man City, but it'll probably end up being Liverpool. Parter Medico FC says, why are Wolves winless in the Premier League this season? Nuno is in a bit of trouble.
Because their success is built on defence, and their defence hasn't been good.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that I think he should be sacked, but he is in a lot of trouble, I think, Nuno.
Really? I think he's probably earned the right to take them down.
Yeah, probably, but I don't
He
think
probably
will
has.
get it.
I actually agree. He has earned the right to take him down.
You're going to say
but
Jose Mourinho.
But the
aren't you?
Wolves owners, I don't think are the type of people
No.
to hang around for Wolves to even be close to
think
a
he'll-
bottom half finish.
I think he'll work it out though. I mean, it's hard to actually put your finger on what's going
needs
on
to
with
work
them,
it
but
out.
but I do think that their failure to properly strengthen the midfield this summer was an issue for them. I think that.
Yeah.
I don't particularly think Dendoncker is good, and I think that Moutinho is great, but is very old.
They're also so defensive.
Not great.
Whenever I watch Wolves, they're just so defensive and totally reliant on Jota and Jimenez producing some.
And
something
Adama
mental.
Traore. You feel like they've kind of already played their wild card. They've already gone to their plan B, which is Adama Traore at right wing back instead of Doherty, and they're just hoping that he gasses the ball down the right wing.
To be fair, it's been great.
Yeah.
It's
I hope he
super-
turns it around though.
And he kind of is.
I really hope he turns it around, Nuno. But
I don't think
he should.
they'll reach the same heights
But
as
he
last
need-
season just because they've got more competitions to juggle.
He
But
needs to do it quickly.
They should have
because the Europa
strengthened-
League hurts you.
And they've got to look at the teams around them and think, look at the business West Ham have done, look at the business that even Everton have done, and look at the business that Leicester have done. Have we done anything similar? And they brought in Catrone, I think that's a perfectly good signing, but midfield-wise, they look thin. And I just think that like one midfielder in the summer, they were linked to Kessié, I don't think that was the right profile, but it wouldn't have been the worst idea.
Imagine if they got Bakayoko. Obviously, Monaco, he's returned to Monaco.
Would have been fan.
And all I'm saying is Jose Mourinho
Player
is
of that
still out of a
mould.
job at the moment and has very good links with Jorge Mendes.
Sure, but maybe you see more minutes for, say, Morgan Gibbs-White over the next
hope
few
so
weeks,
as well.
which would be good because he
Hope
looks
so.
like a talent, but more of an attacking midfielder.
And also, the centre backs. They could have improved centre backs.
Well, they bought Vallejo in, didn't they?
roster
And I
of
think they
centre-backs.
thought Vallejo
Like,
was head of
Vallejo
team
is a
now,
good
so they're
player. He's good cover, but again, not played an awful lot of football. There's an adjustment period there. They got Saiss, who seems to be on a red hot run of goal scoring, but Cody, Bennett, these are guys that have been with them for a long time and they've stepped up. But centre half, if they went out and got a top centre half as well, because they're a defensive side, I think that would make a sizable difference. But
yeah.
Next one from the Has Kareem. He says, do you think Arsenal should stick with Unai Emery come the end of the season, especially seeing as they don't seem to have improved an awful lot under him?
Come the end of the season,
Yeah.
It obviously depends what position they're in.
So he's got his
George
contracts-
wants to sack
his
him now.
contract's up, isn't it, at the end of the season? George Wright wants him out today. Are you in that boat? Where are you in?
Yeah,
What boat are you in?
I'd be fine with letting him go.
Today?
Yeah, especially given the people who are available. I think you could easily get a Marcelino or a Schmidt to take over till the end of the season. I think that'd be worth doing. But I would not hire them permanently. I'd look around in the summer because I think Tuchel's going to be available. I think Erik ten Hag might be willing to move on from Ajax, so that's what I'd be thinking. Or even an Adi Hutter at Frankfurt, something like that. One of those guys.
What's he getting wrong?
I mean, pretty much everything. Like, right, genuinely speaking, right now, like, do you know what a good Arsenal team looks like? A good Unai Emery Arsenal team looks like? How they play?
I don't. No, I don't.
Well, that's my issue. Like, if they were trying to fulfill a particular style right now and they were just failing at it, that would be one thing. But it's impossible to see what they're trying to do.
Yeah,
and more importantly, it's like,
no vision.
Everyone says, oh, if people are fit, they'd be better. And I agree. Like, if Bayern's fit, are they better? Yes. If Tierney's fit, are they better? Yes. However, they could be better right now, and Emery doesn't seem to realise what his players are good at. He seems to think Ceballos is a 10, which he's not. He seems to think Torreira is a box-to-box midfielder, which he's not. If you played those guys in their natural positions, you'd automatically improve the team. And he plays an attacking lineup as well in a lot of games, and still we don't generate a lot of attack. Whereas in every Wenger season, except for the last one, Arsenal still had a really good attack, even when the defence was shambolic. And so what I worry about at the moment is that there's no area of the team which is going well or seems to be going in a good direction. And it's not just the results at the start of the season, it's the manner of those results.
Yeah.
So getting outshot at home to Burnley, even in a win, is not a good look. Even if they're taking bad shots, which they were.
Conceding 28 attempts to Watford.
It was
or whatever
31.
It was.
Yeah, it was 31. Like,
Jesus.
and don't get me wrong, I think Watford are actually a lot better than their position in the table suggests. But that's nuts. Like, if we'd taken 13 shots apiece and drawn that game, I'd say, that's not great. But the fact that we got outshot by that degree, the only game where we've outshot the other side was Spurs, where we massively outshot.
Well, in the
we
top
had double
5
their
leagues
shots
in Europe, Arsenal have conceded the most shots, haven't they? Of any
They did
side.
96, I think, across the first 5 or 6 games.
And a lot of it's being too conservative. Like we're shelling really deep. We did it against Liverpool when we probably should have actually gone out and attacked them a little bit more. And we did it against Watford when we had a lead. And it's just a little bit of stupidity. And even when you're playing out of the back, like, if the keeper wants to give the ball to one of the centre-backs, why is he giving it to Socrates when the other one's David Luiz, who's like famed for his ability on the ball?
Gary Neville did an awesome piece on Monday Night Football about Arsenal playing out from the back, and he basically talks about, it's him and Carragher do like a 10-15 minute piece on it, and he says that the modern team have to play out from the back, but now that you can play inside the box, every goal kick should be considered a set piece.
Yeah, sure.
By every team. And Arsenal's front 4 is like a massive issue of playing out from the back, because what they're doing, Arsenal's front 4, is, I think it was for 4 of the 5 goal kicks you had or something like that, Arsenal's front 4 aren't even looking at the ball. They're just like walking like this, and there's a 30-yard separation to the midfield. So the opposition know that it's not going there. It's 100% not going there. So then they press so high, there's no risk of a chipped ball over the top,
but this is the thing.
Ball out the back.
Arsenal are like a team who got a new golf club for Christmas, and they want to use it for every single shot.
Yeah, there's no variation.
And they don't understand that, like, sometimes you do when you do want to play out of the back, and other times teams are pushing up and you can hit that quick ball over the top, because Aubameyang's not a small guy, and neither's Pepe.
And there's moments where it's like 4-on-3. Watford at times for your goal kicks left 3 back for your 4, because they knew they could press the extra man right up on Guendouzi, and he was going to get f***ed when Socrates gave him the
because
ball.
like, what's he going to do? Like, this is the thing. I think that actually some people have managed to shine this season despite what's going on around them. I think Guendouzi's been good. I think Ceballos has been good. I think that Aubameyang has obviously been excellent. But I think that the start to the season has been so bad that I think, come what may, Emery should not get another season next year. Whether you think he should be sacked now is a different question, but to me, if I could get Marcelino just to take over to the end of the year, I'd do it.
Well, it's not just the start of the season, it was the end of last season as well, wasn't it? Which was pretty abysmal, when you had to win, 3 of your remaining 5?
No, we just needed to beat Bryson. We just needed to beat Bryson.
Okay.
So maybe we were guaranteed top 4.
I do think that he'll still be there end of the season, though. I'd be surprised if he got sacked.
I mean, I wouldn't want to possibly comment at this point, because he's made himself extremely sackable. But the return of your fullbacks could be, seminal at this point already, because you've got 2 players in Bellerin and Tierney who will put up great defensive numbers, who will be an outlet when passing it out from the back and will progress the ball quite readily.
Yeah.
So they could really save his bacon at the moment. But to already be that dependent on, 1, a new player who's not bedded into the side, and 2, someone that's been out for an awfully long time, it's not great, is it?
It's risky. Guna Tegel has the final quickfire question before we move on to personal ones. He says, is Braut Haaland the real deal? You talked about him in the podcast this week, didn't you? Which is, of course, live on the
this
podcast
week's
app.
podcast, was a little bit ragged because I hadn't finished my research, and
we didn't have much time. But there is one available.
That's what happens when you're just looking at sheets of A4 and it's just a copy and paste job.
Good thing it automatically downloads. We're really not selling it here. Check out this week's episode of the podcast.
There is some really interesting sound bites.
Yeah, it's actually pretty interesting.
I mean, Haaland, I think people are getting carried away, and it's easy to get carried away with a player with his skill set, because he's so unique, right? In that he's 6'4", he is pacey, like he's got good acceleration for a man of his size, and there's no obvious technical flaw with him. Like, good first touch, good at passing.
2-footed.
Like, he's going to get a very good footballing education at Salzburg as well, where they play aggressive, vertical, fast football, which is kind of what every top side wants a player who's been brought up, who's been blooded at Salzburg and Leipzig.
Yeah.
Because their footballing IQ is just superior to a lot of youth systems out there. he looks smart as well. Like the goals I've seen him score outside the Austrian Bundesliga, which I think I gave a little bit of a harsh time on UCL review. It is better than Scottish football, by the way, but only just. He's kind of hovering in between the centre halves. Like he's willing to pull out wide. He's willing to drop off deep. I do think that we'll probably see him go to Leipzig when Werner goes to Bayern. I think that's his next evolution. I don't think any Premier League team's going to go, oh, a 19-year-old scored a load of goals.
Man United will.
In the but Munas de Boer scored a load of goals.
But Solskjaer does know Haaland, right?
So Solskjaer is going after players he either knows or are English.
There's
Solskjaer gave him his
connection,
debut,
but
right?
I don't think they pay 40, 50 million for him.
I don't think so either. But it really depends what Leipzig are offering. If Leipzig expect to get him for the price they paid for other Salzburg guys in the past, where it's kind of 20 mil max, then I think that somebody will easily offer them 30, even if it's like a West Ham type.
Yeah. If Ralf Rangnick says he's going to Leipzig, he's going to Leipzig.
If I were Leicester, I would 100% think,
absolutely.
We've got a ton of money. I'm going to offer you. I'll happily offer you like 40 mil for him.
We've already missed
Great
out
move.
on Sebastian Haller, like who we should have gone for. Let's go for
That'd be a great move.
Let's go for Haaland.
As the long-term Vardy idea. Right, let's get a personal question then. This is from Josh Blade, 2004. What's the best meat to have with your Sunday dinner? Seeing as we are shooting this on a Sunday, people will be considering it. Might be thinking I'm going to the pub later.
What about
with
our
my
vegetarian
mates.
brethren?
Is there a one size fits all? I feel like your mood
Depends
changes.
on the pub, doesn't it? Depends on the pub as well. Some pubs are a risk with beef because they'll just leave it under a hot plate all day and it can go a little bit dry.
Some of your wisest advice that, because it is very, very pub dependent. And if it's a pub, just go with gammon because that's hard to mess up.
I also think chicken is sometimes a risk because it can also be left under a hot plate at some
And
places.
if the skin's like flabby, then you've just wasted your time.
Wasted your whole time. And pork is just pork's a minefield. Pork is a real minefield.
If it's pork belly, always go for it though.
Yeah.
Because pork belly's impossible.
And
to screw
pork
up
comes with
almost.
stuff in. It's like a free side.
But some of the pubs I know, chicken comes with what's bacon sausage wrap? Bacon wrap.
Pigs in blankets.
Pigs in blankets. Don't have
Really?
that. So yeah, a little bit.
But the others don't come with that.
Inside,
That's a
insider
swindle.
trading that.
a little bit inside trade.
I think the kind of like the medium rare roasted beef with a Sunday roast is quite overrated. I think people do it quite badly, generally speaking.
They do. You need a good gravy to carry.
And you need
pork beef.
you need a really good quality of beef, which you seldom get. I actually think lamb's really underrated here as well. A slow cooked shoulder of lamb is
hard to
tremendous.
find
I mean, a shoulder of lamb, absolutely fantastic.
Or a
But
leg,
when you get
or
like
a
a little pathetic kind of 6 ouncer, less than 6 ounce maybe, like that, 2 mouthfuls does not qualify as a Sunday roast. And also, I think the meat is overplayed a little bit because if you get a belting roast potato,
It is all about the roast potato.
a goose fat
I
roast
totally
potato
agree.
with the correct gravy, then it doesn't matter if the meat's
Oh, yeah.
a 6 or a 7.
Thin gravy is total.
It's an abomination.
That's an outrage.
If you can see through it, then the chef deserves an absolute clout. Mate.
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody knows like Yorkshire puddings and roast potatoes are where it's at. But that said, I don't think I've ever had a roast potato in a restaurant that was as good as one you can make at home
Never,
because
ever,
you can
ever.
tailor it to what you like.
And also, it's because they leave it to sit, or they
Yes.
don't want to have to crisp it up and spend the time
Yeah,
leaving
yes.
that
Oh.
puppy in the oven.
You know when you get it, when you
Waste of
cut
time.
into it and it's got that kind of like fluffy texture where it's undercooked and you're just like, why have I even bothered?
Or
why
it's
have
just
I
like,
even bothered?
or it's like broken glass. Like my favourite thing is, you know, like when you rough them up,
Yeah.
like
Oh,
and then you get a load of extra around like the colander that you've used to rough them up.
Yeah,
You can
it's-
turn that into like a little
Oh, yeah,
into
I
a
know
little
exactly
fake
what you
potato, and
mean.
it's
Yeah.
like broken glass. It's
but
unbelievable.
you're scraping it. You're scraping it into the corner and then you're digging it with your hands, even if it's 30
And the
yeah.
Jamie Oliver trick as well, where like
300
halfway
degrees.
through cooking your roast potatoes, you get a potato masher and you press them all down slightly on top, just slightly,
Yeah.
and it increases the surface area along the
Do
bottom.
you know who makes a good Sunday roast on Team FD? Man behind the camera. That's McCubbin's special.
Yeah,
apparently.
McCubbin.
Who would you pick? To
What's the
make
special ingredient in the gravy?
who would you pick to make your Sunday roast from Team FD?
Ooh.
Probably no.
We'll take McCubbin from what's the top spot.
Maybe Doogie Critchley.
Nah, absolutely not. There's going to be hairs in it.
Not too sure. Pato might be a decent shout. I reckon Pato's probably the best cook. I saw him cooking cookies the other day.
I reckon
Someone's Instagram.
Dorman's probably a pretty competent cook. You know, he's
Yeah,
quite a civilized man.
Well, ooh,
Yeah, but
does he eat a Sunday
his general
roast, though?
demeanour would
know.
make the gravy bitter. It'd make the food bitter.
I don't know
anyway.
I don't know whether he eats a Sunday roast either. Do the Irish eat Sunday roasts?
Just a stew. Just stew every day.
That is the end of this week's Sunday Vibes. If you want to get your question answered next week, send it to us on Twitter. We usually put the handles out Put the tweets out midweek. You can also comment it below. Anything to plug today, lads?
The Game's Gone Mad will have gone live a couple of days ago, so definitely check that out. And we've already covered the podcast, haven't we? And Hamill, are you on?
I am on
Social
Football Social. So for the third or fourth time this show, watch the Football Social. Go and check out Euro Football Daily as well. And Squad Goals have got some pretty special interviews coming up.
Yes.
So make sure you brush up on your Squad Goals content.
Indeed. And as we said throughout that, make sure you check out Kings of the Premier League live on Sky Sports and click the link in the description below if you want to find out more about the Power Rankings. Thanks very much for watching. Au revoir.